Welcome back to Veteran Idiot. I'm Art. This is Scrappy, our GT40 build. Engine stuff's pretty much done, except for some injectors. The stock injectors are garbage, the ones I had to put back in. So I picked up some eBay Explorer injectors. They're 19-pound, not the 17. So hopefully that'll fix that problem with some of our plugs getting fouled and so on and so forth. Also, this thing tracks all over the place. So I picked up the cheapest eBay caster camber kit I could find. We're going to see how well that works out as well. And we've officially skipped directly over spring, and it is summer. It is 100 degrees already. Can't even stand it. Let's get off this dirt road and into the shop with a swamp cooler. All right, so we're back in the shop. The old swamp cooler is rolling, the Viking. Make sure you hit up a Forticool if you want one of these guys, a reasonably priced, and it works really well. Just saying. Anyways, back to this business. Pulled it in last night, figured out what the overheating issue is. So cylinder heads, everything looks good, and temperature and stuff like that. The second fan is not turning on. So I'm not sure if that's something that I wired incorrectly, or it's not receiving signal, or maybe the motor is already burnt out. I don't know, I gotta test it. We'll figure that out after we get these caster camber plates put on. Still waiting on the injectors. They're supposed to be here yesterday, but they haven't shown up yet, so maybe they'll show up this afternoon. And then we'll throw those in. I'm looking forward to getting this thing driving straight, because it wanders bad. The camber is terrible. So as you can see here, it's got a little bit of a stance to lean in the front tires here, and that's on both sides. Really affects the bump steer. So we're going to try and fix that today with these caster camber plates, and I'll show you some easy ways to go ahead and do it in your shop. Obviously it's not going to be perfect within the 10th degree and out of the red zone into the green zone with the arrows and everything else like that. I'm here to tell you most of those alignment shots, those guys working those machines, and this isn't all of them, some of you guys are really good, most of them just know how to get the arrows in the green area. They don't know what it means.
Who is this guy?
They don't know what the split means, what the difference is left, right. The vehicle still pulls. When it's in the green, we don't understand. There's something wrong with the vehicle. You can work through these things. You can split the caster so it doesn't pull you down the road. Obviously, there are some things like loose ball joints and everything else that affect that, but most of the time, it's something that's just vehicle dependent, and you can fix with splitting it. But a lot of those guys don't know the difference, and all they know is to get it in the green arrows, and it's in the green, it's not working, we can't do anything about it. Anyways, I'm going to show you how to do this in your garage with some string, and then we'll take it for a test drive, and I'll show you how to split and get you the proper alignment on that. Now what I'm telling you is just a, let's call it a go-by. It's not the Bible, okay? So there are many different ways to skin this chicken. This one is just the way that I do it. All right, let's dig into this sucker. Oh, by the way, the caster camber plates didn't come with any instructions, so we're gonna hope that I know how to do it. I don't have a compressor, and it is pretty freaky to do it outside the vehicle. So the way I'm gonna do it is, while this still has pressure on it, I'm gonna release the strut. So I'll take this nut off the top, and then we will drop the strut out slowly. And that way we're not launching a spring through the side of the shop or through the side of my head and then out the side of the shop. That's the easiest way to do it without a compressor. Use the vehicle as a compressor. This doesn't work for everything. Warning, you could kill yourself with these. Be careful. This isn't, again, this isn't the Bible on how to do this. It's just the way I'm going to do it, not perfectly safe. Got all the legal stuff out of the way. I can keep my house and my cars. All right, so it's just a shaft with a nut on here, so I need to get a actual wrench, pull this off since it's sticking at the top. And we'll go ahead and pull this one too. Maybe this one will just spin right off. Nope, same thing. All right, so I'm gonna throw a little grease on here. We'll tighten it back up. Shoot a little on there. Maybe we can get it to spin up past it with some work. There she goes. Oh yeah. All right, that is that. I'll put these cups off. Oh, that one's probably on the bottom side. All right, stay there then. So this car is lowered 3/4 of an inch with BBK springs. And so it gives this terrible camber angle, and probably really screws up the caster, and which is probably what's given me the biggest trouble. Is if you think of it like a shopping cart. Shopping cart has severely positive caster and the tires want to flap behind it. So the closer you get, or farther you get away from negative, and the closer you get towards 0 and positive, negative, the more the tires want to do this when you're driving down the road. So you've got a motorcycle, a chopper. The forks are tilted way back. That's a lot of negative positive caster, and so the tire just wants to kind of drive away from the angle and drive straight. The more you tilt it forward, the more leverage the road has over the tire, and it wants to flop around and then trail like this. So we want to keep it kind of not chopper style, but a little bit back so that the road's not driving the tire itself, it's driving away from the angle. All right, so we'll raise this up, those struts will drop out. There they go, dropping down through, unloading the spring. All right, so the strut, I keep saying strut, but it's not really a strut per se. It's a shock, and then there's a coil spring in the control arm. What I'm trying not to do is get that thing to fly out and kill everybody in here. So the strut is now shock. It is kind of a strut, but it doesn't have, it's not a coil over strut. Anyways, the shock is now loose, so we can pull this plate off and we can start putting the adapter plate on, or the caster camber plate. And I don't have to take this whole thing apart. And I'm hoping that's all that needs to happen. I have not done caster camber plates on this specific vehicle. So you and me, we're learning together like buds, bestest buds. Let's take this plate off the top. Hopefully I can get enough clearance down here. Slide this plate out. Might have to push the strut down itself. Oh, these suckers are wasted. Oh. Either they are not gas shocks or they have no gas left, which doesn't surprise me considering everything else on this car. But. All right, strut is down, shock is down, all the way down. It's got no gas. It feels like it's got decent amount of rebound-ish. I don't think there's any gas in this thing. All right, that's off. Set that aside. Cool, let's get these plates. Nearest I can tell, and I'm pretty sure I'm right. It's like that all the time, don't worry. This plate is gonna come off, come up from underneath, and then this plate is gonna sit down on top, and that gives it the ability to do all the things. Here's our camber, and then this one will slide back and forth for our caster. Once we get our camber set to 0, we should never have to set it again. It should be perfect. It won't change. It's not like when you're adjusting a control arm where you pull one cam in, it affects trying to get the caster, it affects the actual camber, it'll pull the wheel in. So with these, you're independent of each other, and so adjustment, super simple. All you're messing with is setting the toe every single time you touch it. But otherwise, good to go. And pulling caster back and forth without touching the camber shouldn't mess with the toe too much, but we're gonna recheck it every single time anyways. I know, don't scratch the paint. Don't worry, it's gonna be okay. There ain't no paint left on here. If anything, we're just gonna scratch the 30-year-old primer. All right, bottom plate going in. Oh yeah. So the one thing I want to do is I want to center up in the factory holes here. give myself some room. And I don't want to throw it so far off, you know. And then we'll go middle of the plate, check our camber once we're down, and then we'll adjust it around. Woo! These nuts got a little serrated edge on them so they don't back off. All right, cool. That is set. Now we're gonna bring that strut back up in here. The one thing kind of sucks about this is you got this uniball up here that we're using for the top of the strut now, rather than this bushing and stuff. You lose some of the anti-rattle, and this is what I'm curious about, is to see how much this thing rattles after this, and if it does. If we get everything tight, there shouldn't be any spaces for it to rattle, and it's just one secure link down between. But here again, that's the only thing I'm really worried about. It does come with misalignment cams. We're gonna go ahead and try the large one on the bottom first. See what that gets us. Oh, there is some gas in here. Just a little, not a lot. All right, so we reached the end of the shock shaft there. So I put the longer misalignment cam down on the bottom to get it away from the body a little bit. That'll be more adjustment because it does have that dust cover on there. And I'm afraid that that dust cover is almost the size of this hole. And what's going to happen is I'm going to go to adjust it or want to adjust it, and it's just going to hit the sides. So let's lower it down on top of this so we can tighten it up. It's just got to go down a little bit, just so the tire touches and we have enough shock shaft. There we go. That should be securely seated up in there. Feels like it. It's hard to tell. Nope. Guess I should have seen that that misalignment cam actually fits up in there. This misalignment cam does not fit in there, oddly enough. Okie doke. Won't use that one. Good to know. Why is that? We may never know. That is strange. Why did they send that? I wonder if it's just their cut. Just cheap eBay stuff. I think their cut is wrong. I need that misalignment cam on there. Yeah, it kind of fits, kind of doesn't. So I'm gonna kind of buff the edge around this, see if I can get it to slide down in. What I meant to say was that these are so good because they're cheap that buffing this a little bit to get it fit in there is worth saving the $200. Cool, so I expertly ran these down in my lathe over there. And by lathe, I mean a pair of pliers and some sandpaper. Lower sleeve is in. Now I'm just going to slide the top misalignment cam on there, and the nut that we took off, what I do with it, it's over here. Slap that sucker on, and at this point we can tighten this nut all the way up. This sucker can tighten down tight because the shock itself doesn't need to move, doesn't need to loosen. We don't need to do anything else with the shock to set the alignment. So we'll tighten that down. And right now, where it's set, camber looks really good, but we won't know for sure till it's on the ground. And all of that wheel travel is sucked up, and that's where that angle comes from. Let's tighten this guy down. On. I didn't say it was an accident. Accidental. Feels like it's all the way. That may be in the ball itself, which would really suck because that means it's going to chatter up and down the road. It is in the ball. Wow. Okay, so we'll see. But so far we may have screwed ourselves on these cheap caster camber plates, because the uniball itself is moving around in the pocket. We'll see. The uniball is a joint. It's a ball bearing with a hole drilled down through the center of it that sits inside of a bushing. Most of the time metal, sometimes has a like a poly sleeve on the inside of it, and sometimes they have bearings as well. That ball and its point is to be precise. It should never move up and down or out of the pocket or anywhere in the pocket. You lose all of your actual fine tuning with that. So We'll see. We'll see. Let's not get crazy right away. So this one's done. Let's throw the other one on. Sorry, headphone users. Actually, I'm not really sorry. Suck it up. Sweet Caroline. Curious if I take this shock boot off, if this seat is enough to hold it in place, and maybe that's where we're getting our slop in the other one. Okay, so there is, these things are wasted. There is another bump stop bushing on the inside. We'll leave the bump stop. Maybe this is causing our slack. We'll see if this one tightens up properly. But it feels like it's in the uniball over there. That's the biggest problem. All right, so messing with just this ball over here, there is play in the joint itself. It's not necessarily with the ball in the bearing itself. It's the bearing is in this billet piece with the spring clip holding it in place. And there's a little bit of slop between that spring clip and the seat. Okay, it is what it is. Let's throw that dust boot back on. You get what you get with the cheap. We'll see how it rides. We'll see how it goes. And not totally out of it yet. Might totally be worth the $200 savings. Go put this on the lathe, put it in that other one. Ugh. Come on. Strut back in. This one's got a little gas in it. That's nice. Not a crazy amount. All right, lower down. Some of you are probably asking, well, why aren't you throwing on new struts while you're doing all this? Well, because the rest of this costs an astronomical amount of money. So, you know, just give me a break, all right? Oh, ouch, owie. Oh, oh. All right, plates are in. We're going to lower it all the way down, see where our camber's at, get that set first. Get a close enough toe setting, take it for a drive and see if it's pulling any direction. And judging by the test drive, if it's still tracking all over the place, we'll add a little bit more caster to both sides, and depending if it's pulling. So you want more negative caster.
Positive.
On the passenger side. And you do that because the crown of the road, it typically wants to pull right. And the more caster you add to one side, the more that it turns in the opposite direction. For instance, if I have Ford, GM, all of them like half to 0.8 split difference. And what I mean by that is that if I have 1 degree of caster, or I'm sorry, I said this all wrong. Let's go back to the beginning. Positive caster, leaning back. Negative caster, forward. Shopping cart, chopper. All right, now that that's back out of the way. So for these vehicles, if I have 1 degree of positive caster on the driver's side, 1 degree of positive caster on the passenger side, it's gonna wanna pull to the right based on the crown of the road. And so it'll continually pull to the right. You'll constantly have the steering wheel to the left, holding it centered in the lane, and it'll pull to the right. So if I add more caster to the passenger side, and for Ford and Chevy, this is like 0.8 degrees. So 0.8 degree back. So I'm 1.8 on this side, 1.0 on this side. It will even that out, and it'll drive straight down the road. And when you get in the freeway and you get in the left-hand lane, it might want to kind of drift to the left a little bit. But for the most part, you're always in a road where the crown is leaning to the right. And so it'll drive straight in that aspect. Toyota likes 0.4 or something like that. And they almost like to be standing straight up. It's just the way they are. You can't get a whole lot of adjustment out of the Toyota trucks and stuff like that. So, but for this guy, since we don't have any adjustment in the rear, we can adjust the front and not worry about any of that stuff. When you start getting into the independent rear suspension, there's all kinds of dog tracking and everything else that you got to try and figure out. Toe in the rear, toe in the front, so on. Anyways, this car, simple. Live axle in the back, solid axle. independent front suspension. So if it's squirrely down the road, we'll add more caster to both sides. That'll get it to drive with less interference from the road to the tires. If it's pulling right, take away a little bit of caster from the right or add a little bit of caster to the left to try and get it to go straighter down the road. It's all depending on where we're at and what I see in there. I don't have a caster gauge, so this is going to be 100% based on feel, see the pants. We'll drive it for a while, see how it does. I can look it up and I can post in here what the specifications are for this car in caster angle, and camber is usually straight up and down or just slightly pitched, less than a half degree or so positive.
What positive? Positive what?
Like less than half a degree or so negative, and that'll get you driving down the road. A lot of NASCAR stuff like that, they'll give it a whole lot of negative camber on one side, and that's so the tire is planted in the road when you're turning and the tread isn't peeling off the side. So it's planted, you get a full tire patch down in the road with your left hand turn. So if we give it just a little bit, it'll help getting around turns and help with rolling, but a lot of times that starts to contribute to the tracking. That was your more you know minute on a shady tree mechanic alignment. Let's get it down on the ground, see what our camber looks like, take the toe out of it. So anytime we do this, we want to roll it back 10-20 feet and then roll it back forward. That way the tires are in their natural seated position as they would be on the road. Alright, so just a quick down and dirty. We need to add a ton of camber. She's still leaning in pretty heavily, and I'll show you with a piece of string and a little nut tied to the end of it as a weight, just how far off it is. This one, significantly off. So we need to adjust it way out, probably all the way out. Oh, nope, looks like it slid all the way down. Alright, so I got a string on here with a weight, and kind of difficult to see, but this string is 0 degrees camber. It can't hang in any other way. Gravity pulls it to 0 degrees. And so all we need to do is get it close enough to where it looks like we're even with the tire across the entire length of the string. You can run it all the way down to the floor. I just hung this one right here just to give you guys an idea. And we'll adjust this camber out, only the camber, and then we'll go to the other side, do the same thing. I also forgot to mention that the easiest way to do this is to lift it up from the control arm under the spring bucket. That way you keep the weight of the vehicle on there and your ride height won't change that much. That way you can get in and you can adjust these caster camber plates. There's no actual weight on the bottom of the tire pushing against you. And you can pull them out until it's even, tighten it back down. You're not fighting the weight of the vehicle. So go ahead and loosen these up and pull them out. Don't look at my flip-flops. Freiberger wears flip-flops too, so you can just eat it. Camber plates are all the way out, and it is damn near dead nuts perfect. So as you can see, all the way out. Now look at this angle. It looks a lot better. Straight up and down. So I'll tighten it down there, and we'll call that camber good, and we'll move over to the other side. Lowered vehicles just take a lot of camber adjustment. They just, once you move that control arm out of its normal position, it's usually flat, and then you lower it, it's up, it pushes the bottom of the tire out and leans it in, so you've got all this negative camber. And so it takes a lot to get it back up to this point. And with these plates, they're going to be maxed out from what it seems anyways. And there we go. Camber is significantly improved. Much better. It could actually come more, but I just ain't got the adjustment on it, so we'll mess with it in some ways. You may be able to tilt the plate, but it's kind of maxed out currently. Alright, so now I'm going to push the car back, pull it back forward, we'll start messing with the toe. So when you got your camber angle and it's negative, tie rod's here. And it's kind of halfway up the spindle or halfway up the strut. We'll just exaggerate it for this example. But if I pull it more positive, it wants to turn the tire in. And so now we're towed far in from where we were before. And in the same regard, if you're zeroed or 1/8 towed in at 0 for your camber, and you wanted to stance your car and you took it way negative, it would push the tire out. And so that's what we got to mess with right now. One of the crappy things about doing this on a garage floor is that you're gonna have to set the toe a bunch. It's gonna be this cycle. You're gonna roll the car back, pull it forward, get an initial measurement, and then I will adjust what I think will get us into that range, roll the car back, roll it back forward, get under there, get another measurement, see what changed, and if it changed at all, or if we're close, and if we gotta make another adjustment, we do the adjustment, roll the car back forward, etc., etc., etc. Every adjustment we make with any of the caster, we're gonna have to mess with the toe as well. So it's gonna be a lot of getting under the car and everything else. Speedway makes this cool toe kit that we use for our race car. It's a bar, and on each end it's got 2 feeler arms that stick up. I'll show you in a minute. And you adjust it, you zero it out in the front, move it to the back, slide out the arm on one side, and it's got a ruler and tells you about how far off it is. And then you make your adjustment, go back to the front, zero it out, so on and so forth. So here's our bar from Speedway that we'll use to adjust the toe. The only problem I got with it is that it has not been used in a bajillion years, and it's been sitting in a shed because I haven't been racing in like 12 years. So try and free these bolts up so we can adjust it, maybe find some different bolts to put in there, and then we'll get started on it. So the good thing about this guy is I don't have to get under the car 750 times to do the measurement. However, I do have to get under it to actually adjust the arms. So it's give and take, I guess. So let's get a measurement of the back, since it looks like it's towed in, maybe. Actually, it looks like it's pretty towed out. All right, let's see where we're at. All right, so that's our track width measurement for the rear of the tire. Let's go up front. See just how far off we are. Yeah, it feels like we might actually be towed in. All right, that's our toe measurement. 0 is over here, so this is 1 inch towed in. So we're gonna spin these tie rods out, push the tires out in the front quite a ways. We'll probably go, let's go with 2 or 3 threads on both sides and see where that lands us. Alright, so that measurement landed us right between a 1/16 and an 1/8 inch towed in. That is plenty good enough for us to go give it a test drive and see if it pulls in any weird direction, stuff like that, without the toe being involved. So let's go wrap it around the block, bring it back in, see if she pulls. Steering wheel's a little off, we'll fix that later. Oh, I didn't bring my sunnies. Oh no. Yeah. Scraping never hurt nobody. Steering already feels better. Might just be psychological though. I'm gonna roll with it. Steering wheel is almost straight. It could go with like a half a nut turn to the left, but it doesn't pull. We'll see. Get it out on a flat road. still tracks a little bit. Might need to add a little bit more caster. We also could be fighting a lot of bump steer. This thing's lowered, so once you get those tie rods out of their parallel plane, anytime you hit a bump, they want to push in or pull out or push in. Causes the car to want to do this. And that may be one of the biggest things that we're fighting right now. And there's really not a whole lot we can do about it unless we drill them out, put heims in there so we can put misalignment cannons in and drop them down to get them to the right height. Or we can raise the steering rack, which they ain't in a room to do that. Lots of rattling coming from the front. And I know exactly what that is. Had a momentary loss of throttle function there. Especially hard today. It feels rowdy. Again, I'm still only like 3/4 throttle. I'm not really even getting, I'm not shifting it very hard. It's just, the throttle body on this thing is only like this big. Just pulling hard. Really like to get some numbers on this thing. Just got to do a couple more things before we pass tech. One of them being I got to get a battery shut off since we relocated the battery. And another thing, just make sure that it actually drives straight and doesn't try and kill you at over 100 miles an hour. So it's got just an ever so slight, maybe not even a pull to the right. Just barely. I don't know, it's kind of just whichever direction you, no, it's definitely got just a slight pull to the right. So we'll add a little bit of caster to the right side, do the toe again, call it a day. We are back. I let this thing cool down for a little bit, went inside, ate some mac and cheese, and the injectors showed up. So these are the right ones. These are gonna be the 19-pound Ford Explorer fuel injectors that will work with this system, not these guys. Wrong, right. 17-pound, 19-pound. Good to know colors. Sorry for you colorblind guys. It's a different shade of gray is what I'm trying to say. So we'll toss those in. I'm gonna add a little bit of caster to this side, and I'm gonna show you one of my dislikes so far with these plates. So far, everything lines up. This is a problem. This may be pretty difficult to see, but we'll give it a try anyways, and maybe you can spot it doing things it shouldn't do. That strut is tight in that uniball. The problem we got is that the bearing itself is sliding up and down inside. Its seat and the spring clip is too far apart. So the bearing is at one tolerance and the seat is at a different tolerance, and it's jumping up and down. I could probably pull out that spring clip, slide the bearing out of it, stick some sort of shim of something up in there and put it back together to take away that distance, but that is what you get with a cheap caster and camber plate. These were 60 bucks. Ford Racing is $300. I think SVE has some for $230. And then there is these eBay $60 ones. And so therein lies the rub, as Hamlet would say. They look good, they function well for adjustability, they are gonna rattle their ass off. So that brings me to the point of, if I were to do this again, would I go the cheap route? No, I would not. The eBay ones, just not gonna cut it. the fact that that tolerance is there and that bearing can jump up and down, it's just poor manufacturing. And so it is what it is. I'll have to make up the distance in there, and later on maybe we'll get some more expensive ones. But for this time, we're gonna let it ride. I'll pull them off later and shove something in there to get that tolerance tighter. All right, those are swapped out. Should be the last time that I have to take this intake manifold off for quite some time. Should be. I am going to fire it up. I've got the idle air control unplugged and I've got the jumper unplugged from the distributor. I'm gonna try and take down the idle just a little bit, around just under 900 if it'll tolerate it without surging. And then see if these injectors helped and cleaned it up. So it's fired up. Also, peeled my thumbnail back. In case you're wondering, it hurts a lot. I would not recommend it. Computer is figuring out the fuel map. Sounds like it's got it under control now. So now we'll go ahead and we'll back down the timing. Or not the timing, I'm gonna leave the timing at 14. We're gonna back down the idle. I'm just letting it get warmed up first. I didn't realize it had cooled off that much. So again, these are the old injectors that I think were just garbage. They weren't doing well. There's crap all over them. I don't know where that crap is coming from, but they just weren't great. And I think that they had some issues inside, weren't flowing very well. Some of the plugs were like rich, some of them were lean. I think this was the issue. We'll keep them around for emergencies, definitely not primaries. Alright, fans kicked on, it's warmed up. Let's mess with this idle. It's kind of dipping. Around 750-ish. It's hard to tell with the dial on that thing. It's like 1,000 RPM, 500, and then there's like nothing between. All right, let's shut it off, see where the TPS is. .89. 0.89. Maybe we can give it just a tickle. I don't know if there's that much adjustment on there. See if we can give it just a tickle. See if that did anything. Didn't feel like it moved at all, so 0.99. We'll leave it. Shut the key off, plug everything back in, start it up. I'm afraid it's gonna surge at this RPM. It is what it is. Just need to turn it down just a little bit. It was idling pretty high, like 950, 1,000. And then it would go high idle, 1,100, and hang there for a little while and then come down. So trying to mitigate some of that. See how it does. Oh, come on, figure it out. All right, so the computer figured it out. Let's see what it does when it comes down off a high idle. See if it starts surging again. It's also give me a chance to mess with the fans and see why I'm only getting one. All right. So we got the fans figured out. I went back through, checked everything with the Dakota Digital and everything else. So the issue was there's a plug down here on the fan. Even though it's plugged in, there's no retention on the actual prong on the inside. So when I plugged it in, it pushed the prong back and the wire was pulled up, but you couldn't tell that it was pulled back. So I went through all that, came back out here, it still wasn't working with this second fan on this side. So led me to believe that they're independently controlled. The power's coming from the controller, that there's something wrong over here with either the fan or the wiring. Pulled the plug back off, found out that the prong was pushed out. Plugged it back in, now it's good to go. And the temperatures I've got set for it, as soon as it gets over 200, it'll jump both fans on. And I've got the low fan disabled for right now. We'll see how it goes. But they'll both kick on 200, shut off at 185. And it took about 2 minutes to go from 200 down to 185 when they both kicked on. So, and that's just sitting here. I don't have any other fans going. It's probably about 100 degrees in the shop right now. 111 degrees in the shop right now. So I think we're good. I think that'll do. It doesn't like the idle initially when you start it up. It wants to surge real bad. But after about 15-20 seconds, it levels out. And it's idling good now. Still sounds a little high. It's around 950 as it's just sitting here, but it's compensating with the idle air control. I don't know. I might take that screw back in just a teeny bit and call it a day. May even take the TPS back some. 200. See how fast it goes down. So it's going down about a point every 4 or 5 seconds, and that'll do. I think that'll do just fine. I may actually even set it to initiate at 190, shut off at 175, or 180, just so it's kind of like back and forth. But we'll see as time goes on and as we're driving around what it does to reflect that. I'm gonna throw a little bit of caster into this and we'll take it back out for a final test drive. So there's no markings on this thing. So we'll just go with what we think is right. There we go. We'll give that a go. Again, I'm leaning it back, increasing that split between the two. That way it doesn't pull over to this side. Leaning it back should not have affected the toe, so we're gonna go give it a test drive real quick and then we'll mess with the toe when we get back if it's messed up. On the road again with new injectors and caster camber plates and a functional fan. Idle's going back. Surging, dying. Can't do it. Turning the idle back up. It's hot under here. Really, really, really hot. And the fan switch keeps, or this plug keeps coming out. So thanks SVE for that one, which we didn't go cheap on that one. This fans and this radiator and the Dakota controller, that was all pretty expensive. Those were things we were gonna get so they'd be reliable. Now this fan keeps turning off. These, 100%, do not recommend. Do not get the cheap eBay caster camber plates. This thing rattles and chatters all the way down the road, more so than the rest of the car did. I'm gonna pull this bearing apart later. I'm gonna save you guys the trouble of watching me struggle with that. Pull this bearing apart later, throw some cardboard underneath it, mash it down flat, and then put the bearing over the top of it, mash it down flat till I can get the C-clip to clip, and see if that takes away some of the rattle. It's obnoxious, I'll tell you that much. All right, let's fix this idle so I can actually drive it. Idling at 1,000 RPM. Kind of weird when both fans come on, it cools down to 185 degrees in no time flat. It's a phenomenon. Wonder if we're dealing with a vacuum leak. No dice. Nearest I can figure, it's a heavy, heavy load with both these fans kicking on. So I might try wire it back to a high and low system. So it's only one fan pulling when you're starting up, and it doesn't want to surge and load and surge and try and find idle. So I'm going to leave the idle higher. I'm going to leave it around 950. Anything below that, and I couldn't pull out of parking lots. I couldn't do anything. It just sit there, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then it would stall. And just like starting it here, it would just whoa, and stall. And keep the idle up. Don't seem to have a vacuum leak anymore. I'm going to mess with this TPS again as soon as these fans shut off, and then see how it goes. So pulling that caster on that side over there, just need a little bit more and it is good to go. Steering wheel is straight, toe is good. The plates did everything I wanted them to, except for not rattle. They rattle, they pop, all kinds of stuff. Like I said, I don't recommend, but they did fix our camber issues. 0.96. 0.89, kind of dancing around where I want to be. 0.90, we'll call it there. Running like a child, gonna start it up again. Startup surge. It's better than it was. I think that now that we got some actual good injectors in there that are giving the appropriate amount of fuel, all the other stuff that wasn't doing well is starting to shine. I think the old injectors were just screwed up enough that it ran well. It definitely runs a lot better at throttle with these injectors, but It definitely does not like startup, and it doesn't like moving or low idle or RPM. So I don't like how it's idling right now. It's idling at like 1,000. I can't get it lower than that. Just won't do it. Cause I ain't no holler back girl. I ain't no holler back girl. All right, so tinkered around with this thing for a little while. I'm gonna call it quits on it just for now. The idle is gonna kind of be finicky until we get all the stuff. I think the O2 sensors are next on the list. They look really, really old, and they were in there when it was puking fuel through it last time. It smells a little rich out the back, so maybe these fuel injectors are just good enough to where those O2 sensors aren't able to read and compensate, get the computer to compensate, but it is significantly better at RPM with these injectors than those over there. So we just got to figure out this idle issue. I'll run the fans back the way they were, so our overheating issue is pretty much done. I've got this plug finally stuck in there, so we're good to go on those. Camber is good to go. It drives straight down the road. The tow is good. Everything is good with those plates. I'm glad that we got them in, but I will never buy another set of eBay plates, and nor should you. That knocking is horrendous. That's gonna do it for today. Thank you guys for sticking around. Struggled through this one. It's a little bit hot, but we're getting there. I gotta get used to that heat. We're going into hell period, so you gotta, what do they call it? Acclimate to it. So that's where we're at right now. I'm acclimating. We're doing good. Swamp cooler's rolling. It's gonna be a good day. But it's the end of today. I'm gonna go watch the Suns in the playoffs, get some food, and be good for the evening. Thank you guys for watching. As always, have fun.